Hey, Scott.
Mr. LaFlamme, how you doing, sir?
Sorry, last night was a wild night of banging my head against the wall because of the triggered production, but everything's okay. It was really a long night of me fixing everything. We're recording right now,
Is that
and
okay?
that's fine. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let people hear my turmoil. Um, we we had an executive write up a budget for
Yeah.
the pilot, and we pretty much wasted. One of our producers went out and did it on his own just to be proactive,
Yeah.
and they the guy came back to him with a budget that was 5 million bucks for the pilot. And trust me when I say I wrote everything to be hyper efficient in the
Yeah.
production.
Of
Like
course.
I wrote
That's your
everything.
background.
Sure, sure. I wrote everything to be like apartment inside a car, inside an office, inside a house. There's no lightsaber battle on a volcano, right? And
Hmm.
when I saw that $5 million budget, then it was 63 pages, which I think was his intention. Was most of these budgets are that long, but like at 63 pages, they won't see that I copy and pasted this budget from an HBO series 2 years ago, and I can just put in the title, and it's pretty much what he did. And now we're suing him for mis for uh, we're trying to acquire something from him, but he misrepresented the material.
Oh, damn.
And our producer's a lawyer, so he's not the one to be kind of fucked with in this situation. So
Yeah.
he's now really angry and going after this guy, and so that's cool.
What a wrench in the whole
Oh no, everything's still totally like on. Everything's flowing, nothing is slowed
yeah.
down at all. It's just this one producer, he's so nice and wanted to be proactive, while another one of our producers who works on the show, Will Trent, which is this procedural police show,
Yeah.
um, they're rushing to shoot that, and one of our executive producers works for that show, and she found out that this had happened, and it was just a kind of a calamity. But it's all good now. Everybody was doing what they were doing for just to be proactive, and sometimes you have to pause, especially over the holidays. Sometimes moving forward isn't possible in the moment. So we learned
And
our lesson.
nothing like 24 hours of panic to really put some life back into you.
Yeah, no, we're all huggy now, and we're all kissing, and
Yeah.
everybody like embracing and trying to protect each other. So it's all good.
Yeah, I had an interesting day too. I took the bus from Punta Cana to Santo Domingo, and Joel, I am not in Kansas anymore, but we got off that bus and it was fucking sketchy as hell. Like instantly, Taylor's blonde hair and white face is just like drawing all sorts of attention. We've got like all of our food and like luggage and shit, and like these guys kind of sort of surround us and just keep her saying they're like money, 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 money. We're like, I don't. We need a cab. Like this taxi literally saw us. He did a U-turn in the middle of the road. He booted his fare out and was like, hey, 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 like you guys need to be in this cab right now. And we didn't even
You're
know, but I guess it was like a really sketchy area. Like Santo Domingo, it's 3.5 million people, right? And it's an impoverished country, so you can get into some like sketchy parts. But he got us to our Airbnb, and it's beautiful here. And we're about a 10-minute ride from the baseball stadium. So, gonna go see the Lacey Tigers and the Giants tomorrow. The Giants, by the way, I don't know if you knew this. Fernando Tatis Jr. is literally playing on that team, and Fernando Tatis Sr. is the manager.
That's just so insane.
Isn't
I
that
love that.
so cool?
Yeah, you go down there and you watch baseball played for the love of it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's these guys want to play baseball all the time, and they get it kind of harkens back to like Babe Ruth barnstorming 100 years ago, and
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guys who ran Major League Baseball at that point were like, "We're gonna suspend you if you barnstorm." So he'd like put a mustache on, hit
Yeah,
a ball
exactly.
550 feet. Well, that doesn't hide the fact that you're Babe Ruth, and so
Man,
that's
like that's all I can think too is like, holy shit, do these guys love baseball? Like, can you
mm,
imagine? Like, literally, dude. Um, Cattell Marte is playing on the other Santo Domingo team, so we're gonna see him in a few days. But like, he went to game what 6 of the World Series, game 5 of the
fine.
World
Yeah, I think fine.
Series, and then goes home and just starts playing baseball. Like, he had no
Yeah,
off season. He literally got
uh,
on a plane at the beginning of November, flew to the Dominican Republic, and just kept playing.
and
Crazy.
like
Like,
Acuna hit a home run the day he won the MVP.
yeah.
Like, right? He won the MVP deep into November, early December, whatever it was, and he's
Mm,
playing and hits a home run that day. And you see him hit that home run, and you're like, do you have more? Where do you have more fun hitting home runs? You know, like, because you can't
it's
tell.
wild.
They pimp
Yeah.
it like it's the greatest thing in the world, and it absolutely is to them, right? And it just shows you that some of these players would be doing it for nothing, you know.
I'm so excited to see the atmosphere in these Dominican stadiums, dude. Like, I've been reading about it and watching clips and stuff, but like, until you're actually there and get to feel the atmosphere, I don't think that it truly translates. And it's gonna be pretty cool. And like, dude, there's so many like old dudes, like Robinson Cano is still playing here. You know, like this, like all these like 43-year-old ex-major leaguers that have retired are like, fuck, I can still play in the Dominican League. Like,
Yeah, and then go play over in the Saudi league,
yeah,
right? So that's there's international baseball's really sprouting up, and I love that these players are allowed. There's nothing in the collective bargaining agreement that says, hey, you can't go play and more baseball, and like all the complaints that you get from the WBC, like, oh no, these players are going to get hurt, or
yeah.
it's like a lot of these guys just go play another season, and they don't
Hmm.
take it any easier in that other season. They're out there giving it all they've got. So it's just like, I don't know, more baseball, more people
It's
watching
so
baseball is
fucking romantic, dude. Like, seriously, like, come on. They're just a bunch of kids at heart that just are like traveling around the world finding diamonds to play on. It's ridiculous. It's like, think about that. Like, they're these millionaire men that just are like, yeah, but where can I play the next game?
yeah, and it's like every other athlete goes and plays golf in the off season, and baseball players
Yeah,
just go play more baseball. They're like, we don't need
yeah.
to escape our sport. We love our We're not going to
Oh
get
man.
concussed.
All right, my friend. Let's get into around the horn here. I know I was reading your text there, and you were saying that we need to write the scene for when the press conferences and Brooke is announced as the general manager and Jake is announced as the manager, right?
Is that the press conference you were talking about in your text, or Atkins's press conference, or both?
Okay.
Or it's just a
Okay.
nice
That was
segue?
the one I was talking about in my text, but also was that Atkins press conference, man, the reaction from the fan base made me laugh so hard. It's like, if people went into that press conference thinking they were going to like Ross Atkins more afterwards, I think. Like, I was just like, this is 8 years of a robot being a robot. We know he
Yeah,
goes up there, he says words that mean nothing. Like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's that. I couldn't put it better. I couldn't put it better. I, you know, I've always been rather tough on Shapiro and Atkins.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're in this point where kind of other people are having a similar opinion of the two, I'm
Now you're
uh
pushing back again?
no, I'm not pushing back again. I'm just like, their contracts are up at end of 25 and 26. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think it's yeah. I think they're on year 2 of a 5-year renewal there that they did in 2022.
Yeah. And right, so they're really on the hot seat. Um, they they had this team that we all thought was a big window opener about, in 2021. We thought that that window was going to be open for a decade, and now spending money has seemingly closed it a little bit every year. It's gotten a
Hmm.
little bit like you put $100 million onto that team, and that should have opened that window a little bit more and maybe extended how long that window is open for. And now we're in this place where the fans, the optimism has turned into third place,
Joel,
fourth.
can I ask you a question about the money for a second?
Mhm.
Do you think the 150 million on George Springer was the wrong guy?
I've yeah, center fielder 32.
And this is
Um,
hindsight, by the way, because like, man, I was so on board with George Springer when they signed him. But like looking at this contract now, I'm like, man, like he has not panned out almost at all.
yeah, and
Like he
so
just
much
couldn't stay
so
healthy
that
those first 2 years, right? And then last year they moved mountains, Joel, to get him out
yes,
of center field.
yes,
Not only did they move mountains, they made sure that he would never even have to fill in, right? I mean, between Kiermaier and Varsho, like Springer's not playing a day in center.
no, no,
And
and
then, yeah,
but you shipped out your corner outfielders who could break, and you went from a team that could potentially slot your outfielders in any of the top five spots depending on injury in your lineup. I know that's a little bit of a like you're going to have Lourdes hit two, and I'm like, I'd have Lourdes hit two, and if we're you know Bo's down and you need somebody to come up and
yeah,
it's like
for a
and
game, for a
yeah, Teo
game, sure.
exactly. Teo hits four. Springer hits one. I always wanted Springer in those first few years to hit four, which
Yeah.
never really materialized. Now we're seeing the power decrease, and you're wondering now, can you put him to four? Four doesn't make any more sense now because he's not the guy that he was 2 years ago when four made sense.
I mean, unless he comes in April and starts the year off with 8 dingers, and you're like, oh shit, maybe he found a power stroke along the off season here. He's only like he is 34, so like I'm not completely writing the dude off, and I do know what a talent he is. But man, like you just bringing up the money there, like I didn't really know how to put it into words until you said it, and it's right there. And it's like, yeah, man, like once they started spending money, it's felt like a lot of treading water. Like they're getting into the playoffs. I know how hard it is to make the playoffs in baseball. I've watched this sport my whole freaking life. So you start counting how many playoffs the Jays have under their belt in general, and it's insane that this front office holds like 50% of them.
Well,
Now they've done nothing with them, but
the other thing was the thing with Moreno, Teo, and Lourdes leaving was that it turned out that those are our three best hitters against lefties,
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
incredibly good at smashing lefties. Like Gabby, I think hit 360 against lefties last year. Teo
yeah.
has something close to 1,000 career OPS against lefties, and I think Lourdes is about 860, 870 OPS against lefties. Three guys who just when the 30% of the time rolls around and you got a lefty on the mound, these guys, your team is better.
And they were relatively healthy dudes, Joel. Like I'm not saying Lourdes never had some injuries and Teo never had some injuries, but for the most part, you could kind of count on them for 130 games a year. And you look at what the replacement was for him last year with Brandon Belt, who literally turned out about as well as you could have possibly hoped for numbers wise. And we even saw his power stroke coming around in August, September. He was obviously injured in April, but you're just like, we moved the sort of power to have that lefty bat to do pretty much the same thing, like,
And
and
not
be
be able to
injured a
run,
lot. Yeah. And be
not be
such a
able to field,
liability. Yeah.
not be dependable in the lineup. See, something that I brought up before
And I
is that
like
you can't.
Brandon Bell, by the way.
I
I'm not
do.
even, yeah.
I'm not hating on Brandon Belt, but it's just at 34, you looked at a guy who couldn't take four athletic strides without his hamstrings exploding. Like that's pretty much where Brandon Belt is at this point of his career, is
And
3 to
it's
4
funny
athletics per
because
try.
no, you're nailing it, dude. Like when Joel or sorry, Joel, when Adam and I did mailbag yesterday, we were answering a bunch of questions from yours and my episode on Saturday. And one of the things that we did was like go down all the DH options, and we literally compared so many of them to Brandon Belt. And one of the comments was, "You guys compared everyone to Brandon Belt, but you never talked about bringing Brandon Belt back." And I'm just like, honestly, man, he's a we've got Alejandro Kirk. You can only have one of those. You can only have one of those guys, man. Like before you're like, you know, like I remember scenarios last year where Brandon Belt's on first and Kirk is on second. And you're like, if we don't hit a dinger,
We need
there's an out.
5 hits.
There's an out.
We need,
Yeah,
we need 5 hits to score these guys.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's right. We shifted age. We went to age. We went to veteran leadership. We went to experience. We brought in Chapman, Bassett, Gosman, Kikuchi, Belt, Kiermaier, and Gosman worked, Bassett worked. But when you're running out a 33-year-old center fielder in Kiermaier, and you look at his career, and on average, he plays about 70% of the games. Belt last year played about 50% of the games. When you look at their OPS, you have to factor in the replacement player for those remainder of games that they did not play. So if you play 120
and Santiago Espinal's replacement frickin' OPS was not very good.
exactly. And when you're looking at the bench to see what's coming in to replace those guys, and you're like, you know, Biggio is getting spots for Varsho at the end of the year because of strictly more offensive production, right? And it wasn't that much more, but we needed more somewhere. And it's a spot where if you, like I said, if you play 90 games, but you have an 850 OPS, that replacement comes in who's got a 700 OPS. You put those two things together, and your 162 game average of OPS is closer to 770, 780, because you have to. That's what I love. Bo had his little bit of an injury stint last year, but when you looked at the end, when you look at his numbers, it's like his 159, 160 games played meant that his OPS was his 162 game OPS, right? Like that's a diff. Your OPS over 162 games, you've just removed the missing games, add in a replacement level player, and then you look at that guy, and you look at that person, you go, you know, his OP, because we become addicted to looking at WAR and OPS. We become addicted to those, and we stop looking at counting stats. We stop looking at runs, RBIs, hits, and all the things that play out over the course of the season. And you're like, well, yeah, his OPS is 770. Yeah, Adam Duvall also led the league in RBIs with that 770 OPS. So it's just like, you know, it's you have to understand what those numbers are actually producing, especially on the team that they're producing them for. And it's so much more complicated than just being like, that's an 840 OPS guy. He's only on the field 50% of the time, so it's more like 750. Oh,
because of the platoon you're putting these guys in with. It's such a forgotten factor. It's such an important factor, you know, like, yeah, Brandon Belt was great. Who was Brandon Belt's replacement when he couldn't go?
I think
like a long string of dudes, but like none of them even touch what Brandon Belt was doing, right? Like, and that was the thing, is Biggio was probably the most apparent replacement there, but Biggio was being played a lot. So he wasn't always available as the replacement. And then you start to go down the bench and you're like,
See, I saw the episode where you were talking about the Vladdy move to third, right?
Yeah.
And the reason, like, now you can put it down as I sent you guys a big text yesterday about it, but I was saying
and I loved it.
Yeah, I was saying that like you could move him to third for like 80 to 90 games. Okay.
And that, man, did that ever, I like that idea so much more than 160.
Yeah. Don't expect him to be a starting third baseman this year. Give him an appropriate amount of time. I said the way that you would do it is if you had a righty on the mound for the opposing team, You're putting Dalton Varsho in your lineup. You're putting Kiermaier in your lineup. You're putting Kevin Biggio in your lineup. So you're getting your lefties out there. So
Yes.
when maybe a lefty is on the mound, maybe that's the game where a Cavan gets the start over at third. And to Cavan's credit, last year he looked great at third, out of
Hmm.
nowhere.
Out
Magically,
of nowhere.
he made the best play at third base all year when he took that one hopper, went for the
Yeah.
tag, and then made the throw on that double play. And I was like, that's Chapman. If
It felt
Chapman
sa-
made that play,
it felt season saving too. Like it was such a big moment. Like,
it
yeah,
did.
yeah.
And so I have a little bit. Do I think that he's Gold Glove third baseman? No, but do I think that he's got it in him to be league average at third base? Sure. And then you've got a type of platoon situation where this was kind of dependent on going and getting a guy like Rhys Hoskins. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm, I don't know what kind of stab we're going to make for Cody. I don't know what kind of stab we're
Hmm.
going to make for JD Martinez. Obviously, I heard the other message about go get Turner for third base, go get Bellinger for the outfield, go get JD Martinez to be our DH. I I would like one of those things to happen. I think that's
Yes.
what you guys had mentioned. I'd like one of those things to happen. All three of those things are it feels like a pipe dream. Even two of them feels like a pipe dream
Yeah.
right now. And so, but Rhys Hoskins isn't really talked about too much. That's a 1 year deal type thing. He's coming off.
Hmm.
He needs to prove himself. We have a great
And he
history
could
with
be,
1 year deals.
yeah, like he could really be a 30 home run guy that just
Yes,
is just there for $15 million in 1 year if you can pull that off. Fuck, pay him 20.
that's see. I don't care about that one bit when it comes to overpays on a 1 year deal.
On a
I
1 year
really just
deal, me neither.
just don't
Yeah.
care. And um, we've had, like I said, we've had experience. We've had great returns from players on 1 year deals. Even Kiermaier Belt, um, Simeon Ray. We've had good experience with guys about
Yeah.
30
Yeah.
who are wanting a 1 year deal so they can potentially, but it's a prove it deal, right? And those prove
Hmm.
it deals are not just prove it for Toronto Blue Jays, it's prove it for the entire league. You go out, hit 35 home runs, and you're signing $100 million deal next year because you're only 31 and somebody needs a slugger. So I think that something like that really plays out for you don't have to put the big long-term risk into something. And that allows you to literally make a platoon situation where you start those lefties against a righty pitcher. And then when a lefty is on the mound, Rhys Hoskins comes into first base, Vladdy goes over to third, and you start with the games where you play against lefties. And those are the games that Vladdy would play third base. That's 30% of your games.
I I like that. I like that a lot. Man, you know what is one thing I didn't see happening at the beginning of the offseason was Matt Chapman's free agency becoming like the most interesting thing in my life. Like I'm just like
It
I'm
is.
kind of at the point now where I'm like, dear Lord, like I think the market for Matt Chapman, the bottom may have fallen out of it when it comes to term. I don't know if there's a listen. Scott Boras can sit around and tell everyone how he's worth $150 million in 7 years, and that's the bare minimum, and that's all he's going to get. But dude, we both know if there's not a buyer, there's not a buyer, right? Like, obviously, there's plenty of teams who would pony up money for Matt Chapman on a 3, 4 year deal, but Chapman doesn't want that, right? Because he's 29 going on 30. So, is it possible? Is there a world, Joel, where $26 million 1 year rebuild your value exists? Because man, that's the dream. Like, don't get me wrong, it would not excite this fan base at all. But my God, talking about shoring up some of the question marks with this team, man.
I Chapman, I think he had 52 RBIs last year, not any runs scored. But weirdly enough, I'm still sitting here terrified of losing his bat,
I know.
right? I'm terrified to lose a guy who has 20, 25 home run power in his bat. Last year, you saw in April that if he was April all year long, he would have probably put up a 13 WAR and been the greatest baseball player to ever put up
Of
a
all
season,
time, yes.
right? Like that would have been if he would have maintained that April. And so if you can sit down and convince him, listen, if you can tap into that April for more than 1 month this year, you're going to come out of a 1 year deal worth a boatload of money. And 1 year is the only way that you're going to sign 150 unless you go back into a time machine and accept $150 million that Oakland
That's the
offered you
thing, Joel.
6 years.
So is it worth it? Like, just, and you don't need to answer right this second, but just think about it, because I am curious on your thoughts. Is, if you're Matt Chapman and your only offer is 4 years, 80 mil, do you take a 1 year, $26 million deal and roll the dice that you can rebuild your value a little bit? Because I mean, next year, outside of Alec Bregman, it's not like the third base market's that hot next year either.
I feel like 4 years, 80 million, he can get at 30 going to 31.
Yeah. Right.
So why not take a stab at making it 6 years, 140,
50
with a good year?
And that's the thing, right? Like,
that's
he's at that age. He's at that age where the George Springer deal is probably still very much attainable. I just don't think it is this year. I think that this is why I think Cody Bellinger's in kind of a similar boat, dude. I can't see a team. I think the Boris Corp is, obviously they're holding a strong front here and a strong face, but I think that, like, man, the term they want for these guys, it's not out there.
I think the Correa contract last year is really playing to these kind of moments now where Passan was like adamant that this guy's going to sign a 12-year, $350 million deal. And then the physicals go down. He fails two of them, three. I can't even remember how many. And you're sitting there like, the decline could happen tomorrow. And it did. Correa was the shell of himself on a $200 million 6-year deal. And
yeah, man,
you have to look at, like, well, signing it, you need some consistency. You need and you can find consistency in one consistent year, right? If he puts up a consistent 780, 790 OPS, hits 25 home runs, knocks in 85 runs, then he puts that value back up. If he does it over the course of the entire season, as opposed to peaking so massively at the beginning and then batting $180 for the rest of the way, that's what people saw. They saw the last 5 months. And now what you want to do is put a taste in their mouth of like, oh, I can put a consistent 6 months of not exceptional baseball, but just really good baseball and let my glove.
Career average numbers, dude. And he would totally put value. He'd totally put that 6-year 150 back on his back. Like, if he just puts up career numbers again,
like a situation, though, where we can't. A lot of the problem I feel was in our incomplete lineup construction last year, which I've just been baffled in not only the players that we seek out, but the way that we put them in the lineup, the expectations that we have for them to produce in the 4-hole, or the 5-hole, where Chapman and Varsho were sitting 4-5 for a big chunk of last year. And you're like, those guys have, if we're going to be competitive, those guys have no business sitting at that part of the lineup. Like, do you guys understand what a 4-hole hitter is? Because we had a guy on this team with 120 RBIs that you shipped out for a reliever. And RBIs is such an old man yelling at clouds stat.
Yeah.
It is not. It is not.
Yeah.
There are guys on base if you get a hit here, you are going to change the game. And I want players on the team with that mentality who strive for those moments, who lick their lips at the opportunity to hit a ball in the gap with 2 runners on. Put the board. And that is not something that you can quantify by just looking at OPS. Oh, this guy's got an 850 OPS. He'll be great in that spot. No, he bats 220 and he's got a high on base. And when he occasionally hits the ball, he slugs it. But he can't run when he does. It's just like, stop looking at that singular number like it's the answer.
Dude, I will fucking lose my mind if this team doesn't have a cleanup hitter again this year. Like, enough. Okay? This isn't the Edmonton Oilers where you just fucking have a bad goaltender and bad defense for 20 years and just continually exactly. Like, stop making the same mistakes. Like, we need a fucking cleanup hitter. Like, it is so they needed one last year and they didn't bring one in. They thought it would cover itself and it didn't, and now they're
We
gonna
got to the
roll it
trade
back.
deadline, and it's all the people wanted. It's all the people wanted. We got Paul
Yeah,
DeYoung, and we
yeah.
released him, and it's just like Bellinger might be an overpay. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
look at Bellinger and you're like, that could be a risk. But you know what? Not getting a 4-hole hitter is a hell of a big risk, and you're on the hot seat right now. Shapiro, Atkins have to win. They have to get this team past a round of the playoffs. It's you've got the fan base wondering if we're going to be in third or fourth this year,
Yeah.
and they have to be in the playoffs
Yes.
or they're gone. They're
Yeah.
gone now. It's not
Yeah.
about their contract. They're gone now if they're not in the
Yeah.
playoffs this year, and the fan
Yeah.
base thinks fourth. So it's just
Yeah.
like, go get Bellinger. If he shits the bed, you're out anyway.
Yeah.
You're gone anyway. So get him. If he puts up an 850 and 860 OPS, you've got your 4-hole hitter. You've got your first baseman when Vladdy's tired. You've got a center fielder when you want more offense. If you swing and miss, you're going to lose out anyways, and you're going to be
Yeah.
gone. You better do
Agreed.
something. You better bring in
And
JD.
I thought, Joel, that they were going to go full Anthopoulos this trade deadline. I knew that there weren't bats out there. I knew that they'd have to grossly overpay, but it felt like he was on the hot seat and should have been doing that then. And honestly, dude, I still think had they gone out and fricking got a guy who could hit cleanup, they wouldn't have been swept by the Twins and only scored 2 freaking runs. You know,
Exactly. I
like,
totally agree. There's
yeah,
I also believe, and I have believed from the beginning, that Vladdy's fall off is because he's trying to do too much now. Is because he doesn't
mm-hmm.
believe in the guy who's behind him. He doesn't believe that guy's going to be able to do it. So he better smash the hell out of this pitch. And if he doesn't, then the guy behind him is not going to do anything. And that,
It's interesting Vladdy's staying in Dunedin this year. That's the first year he's done that. He's always gone home to DR. And I'm really curious to see what comes in 2024 for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., my friend, because I know like both of us love him so much. Like the talent is, oh, yeah, it's so rare to see a guy with that much talent. And I just would
yeah,
love to see him put it back together.
another reason, like if you look at him, it seems like he's doing the weight thing again. It seems like he's very focused on getting his body into the most athletic shape that it can be in. It was a weight thing, dropping weight before, um, and the shift, weirdly enough, to third base to first base ignited that offense. I'm not saying that
Mm-hmm.
shifting him back to third base may do
Do
that
the
too,
same thing.
right?
Who
Right?
knows, man?
And the other aspect of him going to third base is we have never seen this body type that he has now playing third. We saw the 260 Vladdy playing third. We saw the
Yeah.
big, massive, overweight, not caring Vladdy at third.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
he has dropped the weight. I feel like he moves better. His range, Adam brought up his range at first. I think you throw that away when you throw him to third because he's just looking to make a dive on things that's in his range. It's very, the hot corner is very much a spot where you make the plays that are kind of where you're located. It's very much
Mm-hmm.
line drives. Every ball comes to you so quickly because you're at the hot corner. There's so many righties, so they're all trying to pull. Everything comes to third base so quickly. So it's really about managing, 3-4 feet to your
Yeah.
left, 3-4 feet to your right, as opposed to having that insane range into the hole that a shortstop or a second baseman needs behind the bag, right? So
Yeah.
I still, and the other thing that I had said was that if Vladdy plays, if you give him a partial amount of games to get comfortable with the spot, you give him all of spring training to learn it this year, all of spring training to learn it next year. Maybe he goes to the Dominican Republic to play some winter ball after the season this year and plays more third base. You get some reps in so that in his 2025 season, his last
His
year
walk
before
here.
if he's playing competent third base defensively, then his WAR shoots up too. His value
Yes.
shoots up incredibly. And
Yeah.
and you're saying to him, listen, we made you a more valuable player to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. And we wanted to do that for you because you have the choice of where you wanted to stay. But now your value is increased. We still want you to stay here more than anything. We could have kept you at first base and dropped your value and then moved you after we signed you, but we did it to increase your value. We did it for you. We care about you. And that says a lot to the player, right?
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
so, and I think he wants it. I really think you see him over there in that, whatever that was, that fun softball game. He's over at
Yeah.
shortstop and
Playing
he's
short,
having
loving it.
fun over
Yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm for it. I'm for it.
All right, Joel, I could talk Blue Jays with you literally all day. Let's talk some around the horn here before I need
Yes.
to leave in
Yes.
like 10 minutes.
Oh, my bad.
No, don't. You got me off the rails real quick. It was not a tricky thing to do. Okay, so let's talk the scene that's got to get written here, right? And that's what you were saying is like one of the scenes that we should do is one where it's announcing Brooke and Jake
Yeah,
as the
putting
GM
the
and manager.
jerseys on them, right? Type
Hmm.
thing, you know.
And what I envisioned too was like cuts to, and I don't know what those cuts to because we don't want to rip it off completely. But you know the scene in Major League when they're showing all the players that had made the team in the paper, and everyone's reading the
Yes.
paper, and it's just like a cut of like, who the fuck are these guys, right? And it's
Yes.
like goes to the grounds crew, and they're like, they're shitty, right? And it's just like that,
Yeah.
like I kind of envisioned that sort of idea, right? Of like Jake Horn is our manager, right? Like, like who the fuck is this chick? 26? Like, like
Exactly.
just yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
that.
because I also envisioned it being funny too, right? Like that scene, because I'm guessing you want to write it so that it can be like a trailer type of thing, or like
Yeah. Almost
yeah,
maybe like what you're describing, but imagine Jake and Brooke going to work in the morning, and just imagine them both cutting between the two of them as they wake up. The news is on Sports Center. Jake goes to get a coffee and a newspaper, and they're talking about it around, like you're hearing those conversations. Jake fucking Horn is managing us. We kicked the shit out of him in the World Series. What the hell do we want him
yeah,
here for? You know?
yeah,
And they're hearing it like they're hearing shit being talked everywhere they go, and they're
yes.
trying to, like Jake's trying to like put his sunglasses on, like, not be noticed.
I
And
love this. I love the I like the idea of showing both of their morning too, because I think it would be funny, and I think it's on brand for Jake to like not be excited about it. He wakes up hungover. He grabs a rag and he's wiping under. He's putting on
yeah,
an old blazer or something. And Brooke is like literally up at 4:30 a.m. and she's like making sure everything is immaculate and perfect, and her makeup's perfect, and her outfit is perfect. And Jake's like scratching his balls and pulling on an old pair of jeans, right? Where he could even show up and she could be like, "That's what you're wearing?" Like,
and then she goes somewhere in the stadium to dress him.
yeah, I
She
love
knows where
that.
there's somebody
She
else with
knows she
clothing.
has a suit for him. She knows she
Yeah,
can't trust him. Yeah.
right. Like I'm wondering if like all the lockers are cleared out clearly and stuff. It would be just interesting if like you're like, oh, Alvarez always keeps his stuff here in the off season. You're about his size, and they go to his locker, and there's a suit there, and it's like looking at it. Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. A big suit's better than no suit, and
Yeah. I
it's
love
like,
it. I love it. He goes in and it's too big on him. That's so funny, man. I love that idea.
yeah, no, that makes, and it plays to the idea that she has to babysit him. That seems very parental, and
Yeah.
it's somebody who's younger than you, and a female, so it's just these two elements that, like, you know a younger woman is putting me together right now, and then we're going to go on, and then she's going to get more of the talking points. I'm going to
Yeah.
there during the press conference, and like 90% of the questions are going to be sent to the first female GM, because this is history. And my moment is kind of overshadowed by that. Also, my
Yeah.
moment, I'm a manager. This means something. I always wanted to be a manager. I thought I'd be a great manager, but my first job as a manager is you know, I'm under the cloud of the first ever woman who, and I have no respect for this woman because I don't know her and I don't know what she can do yet. And I just
You know
like
what
those
an
elements.
ongoing I love that, by the way. You know what an ongoing joke I was thinking would be kind of a funny thing to constantly do is when Jake Horn is announced as the manager, all of the players can be like, Jake Horn, didn't he retire like 3 years ago? And he can keep being like, I literally played you in the World Series in November. Like,
Did you get a hit?
yeah, exactly. Oh, I don't
I
even
got a
remember
walk.
you. I got walked once. Yeah,
I
that's funny. That's really funny. I took a walk.
took a
That's funny.
walk, two
Yeah.
walks, and I got hit by a pitch. Didn't get a hit though. That's probably why I don't remember you. You're wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You
You,
never got on
you didn't get a
base.
hit, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's fun. I think um now now I don't know where we necessarily need to put it because you can sign somebody on publicly let it be known that we've signed somebody, and then 4 or 5 days later you do the press conference where the official, like Yamamoto just did it, I think yesterday or the
Yeah.
day before, right?
Yeah.
And so it could be a situation where, like, I know we need to do that scene. It doesn't necessarily mean that episode 2 needs to start that scene. Like they can
Right.
go off on their they can go off and do an episode of scouting, and then they can come
Hmm.
back. And it's going to be, we're going to have the press conference to introduce you. That could be episode 3, how episode 3 starts, maybe, but I just really feel like that'll be, I, I was going to start working on the scouting stuff. And I was like, wait, no, they need to be introduced to the fan base. That
Yes.
is a thing that is, and literally
Yeah.
every, that has to be a staple of the show is every new player that comes in, you get that little moment with the press where the press is asking questions. They really get to dive into who that new player, and Brooke gets the opportunity to do the Atkins thing, say as much
Yes.
as she wants to, say as much as she's allowed to, and
Yes.
you see her put on this I'm not allowed to tell you face, but she can't say that, so she has to toe the
Yes.
company line with words. So that'll be fun to be able to see what they say, and then Jake's like, "Is that what you actually think?" And it's like, "No, Jake, I know how to be professional in front of cameras.
Yeah.
I can't believe you at 40 still don't know how to do that. Please shave tomorrow. We're gonna be like the
Please
Yankees,
shave tomorrow.
you know,
Yeah.
you know? Pretend like you're on the Yankees, okay? Please shave
Yeah.
tomorrow, and
Yeah.
it feels like that dynamic is going to be just so fun to work with. And
Yeah, I
then
think so too, buddy.
I have 2 actors coming in on Friday. The actors,
Amazing.
these are just I really have this. I showed you Judd before. He's the
Yeah.
mustache guy,
Yeah.
and he was out of live feed. I would have to say he was one of the best actors, period. But he got picked up on a show called The Blacklist. And then he went to New York, and then he was doing theater, and he got picked up for all these jobs. So he couldn't do live feed, but he's a super baseball fanatic. Whenever he's not,
Amazing.
yeah, whenever he's not acting, he just goes to Shea or
And
City
he's the guy
Field.
you had pegged for Brooks'
Tom.
dad, right?
Yeah, yes,
Right.
Tom. Yeah,
Nice.
and
Perfect.
and then I have the girl that I like for the Brooke part. These aren't cemented, right? These are just
Hmm.
really feel these two for these two specific roles. I when it comes to the owner, Jake, Jose, Camilla, all of these actors, I have no idea who anyone would be. I don't have any actors in mind for any of these characters. I just
Yeah.
have Tom, and I have one in mind for Brooke. Not guaranteed that they're going to get the roles at all,
Yeah.
but I have a out of all the casting and stuff that I've done over the last 2 years, I'm pulling these 2 actors because I think they would be rather strong, especially in the temp episode. If a production company comes along and goes, we need I don't know, Keanu Reeves. I don't know. I get
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves. He
Yeah.
played hockey.
Yeah, you're right. If someone comes in and they're like, "Hey, we have a superstar in mind," we'll be like, "Oh."
Yeah, that's the way you have to play it, right? And then you just move your actors into
Yeah.
reoccurring roles, and they have to take that
Yes.
bullet. But at this
Yeah.
point, putting together a temp episode, and it's truly something that I'm putting money together to shoot because
Bro.
I want it. I have a vision of it in my head. I've got a really great director. He feels like we could shoot in April for about 60 grand. And I have that
Wow.
money pretty much put together already. I have to cut up some
Amazing.
pieces of the pie, but there's a good chance that come mid-April, we might be in Atlanta
Okay.
shooting. Yeah.
Man, that would be incredible. I actually wrote another. It's funny. I've got all these scenes and ideas written down here. I final draft. I've kind of pretty much figured it out, and the rule was two um two visuals, one sound.
Yeah, that's just a very
And
basic,
just
but
basic. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Just double checking. I
Eventually,
do have it all written down. Like I just, yeah.
eventually you'll get to a point where you just what you see and hear in your head, you'll just
Yeah.
articulate. You don't have to put
Yeah.
two or one, or it could just be sounds. And he
Man,
wakes up,
I
he
so
says
appreciate
something.
you taking the time to like fill us in. Like, we're just a couple fucking rookies. Like, it means a lot, man. But I do have these scenes, and I
Have
will
fun.
upload it for you because I really want you to go over it, Joel, and just kind of let me know if I'm on the right path. I feel like I
Yeah.
am. I like
Yes,
we've talked enough
I
about it where I'm like, I'm writing these
you don't.
characters, and I'm like, yeah, Joel, this is what he wants. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you
So,
don't have to worry about any of the formatting or any of the delivery of a screenplay. You don't have to worry about any of those things. I'm here. I
mhm.
know those things like the back of my hand. When it
Yeah,
comes to writing the finalized version of the script, I will make sure that it's so just lead with your heart, fly by the seat of your pants. I've got your back, and I don't
yeah,
really think any of those formatting things really matter. We're 100 years into film. There's no set way of doing this shit. Let's not
yeah,
pretend like this is, a book. Books have been established for a very long time. Theater has been established for a long time. You go to
yeah.
your small game though. You got to
Okay.
run.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Joel. We'll
no
talk real
problem.
soon.
I sure will.
Glad to hear Triggered is still right where it should be, even if you
Oh,
had a
right.
little panic
Absolutely.
episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just
All right.
You always just need to calm people down sometimes, especially over the holidays and when you start a new year. Happy New Year to everybody out there.
Happy
Happy New
New
Year.
Year.
Enjoy Ketel Marte. Enjoy all those
Thank
amazing
you.
players that you get to see having fun, and have a great day.
You too, buddy. Take care.